Ever feel like people toss around military genius like it's, I don't know, as easy as shining your boots?
Right, like it's just about being some kind of battlefield action hero.
Exactly. But in On War, Clausewitz, he digs into that idea in chapter 3, and well, he suggests it's a lot deeper than just, say, raw courage.
Mhm.
Especially, for someone like you, in the thick of it, facing modern warfare.
Yeah, Clausewitz, he's all about this blend of strengths, mental and emotional all working together. Kind of like picture a well-oiled engine.
Okay, I like that.
You need every single part working right in sync or the whole thing falls apart.
Right.
And a military leader, it's the same deal.
So not just a one-man show, but someone who's got these different strengths, and they all work together.
Hit the nail on the head. A leader might be naturally gifted at strategy, but they also need the discipline to see it through. And the emotional intelligence to bring their troops along. It's that synergy, right? Where one strength doesn't, overpower or contradict the others.
Hmm. Makes me think of all the different roles you need in a successful unit. You've
Yeah.
got your tactical masterminds, your tech wizards, your logistics gurus. Everyone brings something to the table.
Exactly. And this is where Clausewitz gets really interesting. He argues that this well-rounded kind of military genius, it's actually more common in civilized nations.
Hmm. You mean compared to societies that are, I don't know, more war-torn, where
Yeah.
it's all just about surviving?
Yeah, exactly. He's suggesting that the intellectual development you find in a more civilized society that focus on education, thinking critically, even things like diplomacy and trade, those actually set the stage for a deeper, more, I guess, sophisticated understanding of warfare.
Okay, that's a really interesting point. It kind of flips the script on that stereotype of the, battle-hardened but maybe not so educated soldier, right?
It does, and it's especially important for someone like you in the modern military, where the intellectual demands are through the roof. Just think about the tech involved, the geopolitical chess game, even legal and ethical stuff.
It's like you're not just leading troops, you're practically juggling, like, global implications over here.
Exactly. And that leads us to what Clausewitz calls, get this, the four elements of war, the real proving ground for any leader, the stuff that truly separates the genius from the, well, let's just say not so genius. And trust me, it's not just about facing the enemy on a battlefield. He lays it out like this, these four elements: danger, exertion, uncertainty, and chance. Each one, it's like a hurdle on the track, on that racetrack of military leadership.
Okay, so let's break those down a bit. Danger, I mean, that seems pretty obvious in war, right? What's Clausewitz getting at there?
He's not just talking about, dodging bullets, though. I mean, obviously that's part of it. He's talking about that weight a leader carries, all those lives, depending on your calls, the sheer possibility of messing up big time, that's heavy stuff.
And I'd imagine that just gets heavier the higher up you go, right? I mean, a platoon leader's decisions, they're life or death, but in general, their choices could affect, like, whole countries.
You got it. And then on top of that, you've got exertion. Clausewitz, he knew war's not just about, winning the next fight. It's a marathon.
It's about, like, thinking days, weeks, months ahead.
Exactly. And not just the physical grind, the mental part too, having to adjust constantly, making these huge decisions on barely any sleep. Under pressure, most people can't even imagine.
Okay, and uncertainty.
Yeah.
That just feels like, I don't know, a constant in war, no matter what era we're talking about.
He calls it the fog of war for a reason, right?
Mm.
You never have all the pieces. The enemy is always trying to outsmart you. Your intel could be bad. He says straight up, a leader who can't function in that kind of chaos, who needs everything spelled out perfectly before they make a move, they're already behind the eight ball.
Makes you think about how important it is to be able to adapt, to, like, think on your feet when things go sideways, which they always do.
Which brings us to chance. That wild card. The thing that can wreck even the best laid plans. Weather shifts, a supply chain goes haywire, the enemy gets lucky. Those are the moments that really show you what a leader's made of. Can they roll with the punches, turn a disaster into, maybe not a win, but at least not a total loss?
And hopefully not totally lose their cool when that happens, right? We've all been there, I think. Though I'm guessing the stakes are a bit higher on a battlefield than, say, when I lose my keys.
Just a tad. But Clausewitz's point is these four elements, they're the constants no matter what century we're fighting in. And how you respond to them, that's what separates, well, the legends from the rest.
So if these elements are the test, what are the magic ingredients? What lets a leader not just handle them, but actually excel?
Well, Clausewitz dives into that too, and one of the first things he talks about is this really interesting idea of coup d'oeil.
Coup d'oeil. Sounds kind of like, I don't know, some fancy French military maneuver.
Well, maybe a mental maneuver, you could say. It's this ability to cut through all the noise, all the chaos of a situation, and just instantly get it, see the truth of what's really going on.
So more than just, like, being quick on your feet mentally.
Think of it as like heightened awareness. Picture this. A battlefield commander reports flying in, explosions everywhere, and they suddenly pick up on this tiny shift in the enemy's line, that's coup d'oeil, or a pilot scanning their instruments notices this little blip. Could be nothing, right? But they know that's an incoming missile. It's about seeing what others miss, and often in like a split second.
Okay, so you've got that flash of insight, but then comes the hard part, right? Actually doing something about
And
it.
exactly. Clausewitz, he pairs this coup d'oeil with resolution. Basically, the guts to act on what you've seen, even when the pressure's on, the stakes are high.
So not just like charging in blindly, but having that balance of confidence,
Yeah.
but also knowing the risks.
Nailed it. A resolute leader, they trust their instincts, but they're not reckless. They've thought about what might happen, and they're ready to own it, whatever the outcome.
Which takes some serious strength of character, especially when we're talking life or death situations.
No doubt. And that takes us to two more qualities Clausewitz is big on: presence of mind and strength of mind. Sounds similar, but there's a key difference. Presence of mind, that's your adaptability, thinking on your feet when things go haywire.
Like in those movies where the hero's plan blows up in their face, but they, like, improvise some brilliant workaround with a paperclip and some chewing gum.
Well, let's hope it's a little more high stakes than chewing gum, but yeah, you get the idea. It's about staying flexible, not getting stuck in one way of doing things. Strength of mind, on the other hand, that's about your emotional core. Can you stay calm, focused, make the tough calls, even when everything's going crazy around you?
Like the captain of a ship in a storm. Can't exactly lose it when the waves are crashing down, right?
Perfect analogy. Strength of mind, it's that inner compass, keeps you pointed the right way even when the whole world's spinning.
These all seem crucial no matter what your role is, but I'm guessing they become even more important the higher up you go.
Absolutely. And here's something I think is really insightful. Clausewitz, he doesn't just talk about generals and admirals. He says military genius, it can show up at every level of command.
So it's not just about aiming for the pop spot, but understanding what your specific role needs, how you fit into the bigger picture.
Exactly. A brilliant strategist might be useless leading a platoon in close combat, and vice versa. Clausewitz, he's all about this idea that each level of command, it's got its own rhythm, its own challenges, its own kind of genius.
Makes me think about second in commands. They don't always get the credit, but they're so important backing up that leader's vision.
And Clausewitz, he gets that. He says a good second in command, that takes a special kind of genius. They got to be able to see what their commander needs, give them honest advice even when it's tough, and make that plan happen even if they don't agree with every little detail.
That's a tough line to walk, being loyal, but also thinking for yourself.
For sure. But when it works, it's like that well-oiled machine again, everyone moving together. And speaking of the big picture, Clausewitz, he doesn't stop at tactics and operations. He takes it up a level to this idea of the general as statesman.
So now we're talking those rare folks who are just as comfortable on a battlefield as they are in a, I don't know, a war room.
Exactly. Clausewitz, he knew military decisions always have a political side. Guys like Napoleon, yeah, they were geniuses on the battlefield, but they also knew how to use those victories to get what they wanted politically. Alliances, treaties, public opinion, they were masters of it all.
They understood that war, at the end of the day, it's a tool. It's about achieving something bigger.
Right. And Clausewitz, he's really clear about this, making those big picture decisions, the kind that can like change the course of history, that takes serious brain power. It's not just about being good at fighting.
He even compares it to like solving these complex math problems, which says a lot about how important he thought education was, even in warfare.
Absolutely. And he leaves us with this question, and it's just as relevant for us today. What kind of mind, what kind of person really thrives in war? And he says it's not always the smartest, not always the toughest.
But someone who combines what? Intellect and that inner strength. The ability to think things through, plan, adapt.
Bingo. Someone who can stay cool under fire, make the tough calls when it matters, and never lose sight of the bigger picture, even when they're in the thick of it. Makes you think, right.
It really does. Clausewitz, he pushes us to go beyond those simple ideas we have about military genius and see it for what it really is. This whole mix of skills, experience, mental toughness. It's fascinating stuff and definitely something to keep in mind. Thanks for diving into this with me. I always learn so much from our chats.
Anytime. Always a pleasure to talk Clausewitz.